The story of Esther the Queen. It all happened in the days of Xerxes, who reigned over 127 provinces from India to Ethiopia. In the third year, King Xerxes had a great idea. He would have a magnificent feast for all his princes, all his nobles, and all the governors of all 127 provinces. A feast that would last for 180 days. And so it was. And it was a fantastic time. Then, at the end of those days, the king invited everyone in Shushan for a 7-day feast in the garden of the king's palace. Beautiful Queen Vashti also gave a banquet for all the women in the royal house. Then, on the 7th day, when the king's heart was merry with wine, he commanded his attendants to bring Queen Vashti with the royal crown before the king. He wished to show all the men and all the princes how beautiful she was, and so the attendants hurried off to get the queen. But Queen Vashti refused to come.
No, 1,000 times no. I, Queen Vashti, will not parade before those drunken men.
Well, when the attendants returned with the queen's answer, the king was enraged, and his anger burned within him. The king called for his wise men, 7 princes of Persia and Media. "What is to be done to Queen Vashti, as she has not done my bidding?"
"O great king, live forever. Vashti the queen has not only done wrong to the king, but to all men in King Xerxes' kingdom. For the deed of the queen will become known to all the women. This day the ladies of Persia and Media will do the same to their men. Contempt and wrath will arise. Oh, I can see it all now. Oh,
Yeah, contempt. Yeah, wrath. Terrible. I know, said the king. But what is to be done?
Ah, great king, live forever. If it please the king, let a royal command go forth. Queen Vashti is to be divorced and sent away, the royal position to be given to another who is better than she."
Yeah, better. Yeah. "Oh, yes," said another. "Then when the king's decree is made law, all wives will give honor to their husbands, high and low." Yeah, better. Yeah. This advice pleased the king, and so it was. But later, when the king's wrath had cooled, he remembered beautiful Vashti, and he was very sad. Then the king's attendant said,
"O great king, live forever. Let a search be made for beautiful young virgins for the king. Let them be brought from every province to the harem at Shushan. Then let the girl who pleases the king be made queen." Well, that advice really pleased the king. And so it was. Now there lived in Shushan a Jew, a Benjamite, whose name was Mordecai. He had been carried away from Jerusalem by Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, when Judah was captured. Mordecai had a cousin named Esther. He had taken her as his own daughter when her father and mother had died. Now Esther was very beautiful and very lovely. So, when the king's decree was proclaimed, and many maidens were gathered to Shushan, Esther was also taken to the king's house, into the custody of Haggai, keeper of the women. Esther pleased Haggai, and he quickly gave her her beauty treatments, and he gave her special food, and he gave her 7 maids. Then he moved her to the best apartment in the harem. Now Esther had not told her nationality, because Mordecai had told her to keep it a secret. Every day Mordecai walked back and forth near the courtyard of the harem to find out how Esther was, and what was happening to her. It took 12 months of beauty treatments with oils and perfumes to prepare each girl. Then, when it was her turn to go before the king, she could take anything she wanted. She would never return to the king again unless she pleased him, and he called for her by name. When Esther's turn came, she took only what Haggai suggested. Well, the king liked Esther more than any of the other women. He set the royal crown on her head and made her queen. He gave a great banquet and proclaimed a holiday and gave many gifts to all according to the royal abundance.
It was some time later, when Mordecai was at the king's gate. He noticed two of the king's officers who guarded the doorway. They were very angry and were plotting to kill the king. Mordecai overheard the plot and got a message to Queen Esther, who in turn told the king. When the report was found to be true, the two officers were hanged. All this was written in the king's book in his presence, giving credit to Mordecai. Now after these events, King Xerxes set a man called Haman above all the other nobles and princes. All the royal officers at the king's gate fell down and paid Haman honor as the king had commanded. All, that is, but Mordecai. He would not kneel down. "Why do you disobey the king's command?" asked one officer. "Why don't you kneel down before Haman?" "I am a Jew, and we do not bow before man or statue," replied Mordecai. Well, the officers hurried off to tell this bit of interesting news to Lord Haman. Lord Haman was outraged.
"I will not put up with his insolence. He shall die. But wait, a Jew, you say, huh? Let me think here. I know. Not only he, but all his people will die too. They're all the same, you know. I need to find a lucky day for this deed. Come, cast lots with me. Here, throw the dice. Aha! Number 12. That's when it shall be done. The 12th month. Now to see the king to get his permission. Oh, great king, live forever.
Ah, yes, Lord Haman. What is your request?
Oh, great king, live forever. I have discovered a certain group of people living among your provinces who keep themselves separate. They are very different, and they do not obey the king's laws. It is not good for the king that they should live among his people. I will personally put 10,000 talents of my own silver in the royal treasury to carry out this business for my king."
No, no, the silver is yours, Lord Haman. Here is my signet ring. Do with those people as you wish. Call the royal secretaries. Come, come, write as Lord Haman dictates to you.
It is the king's wish that in the 12th month on the 13th day, every Jew, young and old, man, woman, and child, shall be put to death, and all their goods are to be taken.
Excellent, excellent, said the king. Now seal it with my ring. It is my law, never to be changed.
Now copy the king's decree in every language, and send it by horsemen to every province in the king's kingdom, ordered Haman.
And so it was. Come, Haman, said the king, let us sit down, drink, and celebrate. All is well. When Mordecai heard the king's decree, he tore his clothes, put on sackcloth, and threw ashes on his head. He went into the city crying and wailing, "No, no, no! Why has this happened? Oh, this is terrible, terrible!" When Esther's maid saw him, she ran and told the queen. The queen was exceedingly grieved and distressed.
"Quick, take these clothes to Mordecai, and order him to take his sackcloth off."
Well, off ran the maid with the clothes and the queen's orders. "No, no, take the clothes away," ordered Mordecai, and he began to wail again. "This is terrible, horrible, awful. Oh, what are we to do? Why, oh, why, oh." So the maid scurried back with Mordecai's answer. Then the queen called Hathach, one of the king's attendants assigned to her.
"Go quickly to Mordecai and learn what has happened."
Hathach found him in the open square in front of the king's gate. "What is wrong, dear fellow? The queen wants to know."
"It's terrible, horrible, awful, all because of Lord Haman. He has an order from the king. Oh, every Jew,
Man, woman, and child is to be killed. Killed, do you hear me? Haman has offered 10,000 talents of silver to the royal treasury for their death. Look, here is a copy of the decree. Take it to the queen. Tell her she must go to the king and plead with him for the lives of the people. So Hathach went back and told the queen of Mordecai's words.
Return to Mordecai. Tell him any person who goes before the king without being called shall be put to death, unless the king holds out the golden scepter. But I have not been called for 30 days. I cannot go.
Hathach told Mordecai the queen's words, and Mordecai replied, Return this answer to the queen. You shall not escape in the king's palace. If you keep silent at this time, deliverance for the Jews will come, but you and your father's house will perish. Who knows, but you have come to the kingdom for such a time as this. Then Queen Esther returned this answer.
Go, gather the Jews, and have them fast. Neither eat or drink for 3 days and nights. I and my maids will fast also. Then I will go to the king, though it is against the law. And if I perish, then I perish.
Mordecai did as the queen commanded. On the 3rd day, Esther put on her royal robes and stood in the inner court of the throne room. When the king saw her, he was pleased, and he held out the golden scepter. So Esther drew near and touched the tip of the scepter. Then the king said, Queen Esther, what is your request? It shall be given you even to half the kingdom. Esther replied,
If it seem good to the king, let the king and Lord Haman come this day to a feast that I have prepared.
So the king ordered, Cause Haman to come quickly, that what the queen has said may be done. And so it was. During the meal, the king said to Esther, What is your petition? It shall be granted you. What is your request? It shall be given you, even to half the kingdom.
Oh, said Esther, if I have found favor in the sight of the king, let the king and Lord Haman come tomorrow to dine, and then I will tell the king my request.
Haman left the palace that day, oh, so happy. But when he saw Mordecai at the king's gate refusing to bow or show fear, he was filled with rage. When he got home, he called his friends and his wife.
I am rich. I have 10 sons. The king has promoted me above all the princes. And today, the queen invited only myself and the king to a dinner. And tomorrow I am invited again. But all this is nothing. Nothing. For when I pass the king's gate, who is there refusing to bow but Mordecai?
His wife and friends said,
Let a gallows be built.
Yeah, a gallows 75 feet high.
Sure, and you can speak to the king so Mordecai may be hung.
Of course. Then you can go merrily to the dinner with the queen. Well, that idea pleased Haman, and he said,
Now, get the men. Build the gallows now.
That night, the king could not sleep, so he ordered the book of memorable deeds be brought and read to him. And it was read how Mordecai had told of the 2 officers who had sought to kill the king. And the king said, What honor was given Mordecai? Nothing, my king. Nothing has been done for him. Suddenly there was a noise in the outer court. Who is in the court? Roared the king. Now Haman had just come into the king's palace to ask permission to hang Mordecai on the gallows. The king's servant said, Behold, Haman is standing in the court. The king said, Let him come in. So Haman came in, and the king said, Haman, tell me, what shall be done to a man whom the king delights to honor?
Now Haman said to himself, Who would the king delight to honor more than me? So Haman said, Let royal apparel be brought, which the king has worn, and the horse which the king has ridden, and a royal crown be set on his head. Let the clothes and the horse be delivered to one of the king's most noble princes. Let him array the man whom the king delights to honor, and let him conduct him on the horse through the open square of the city, and proclaim before him, Thus shall it be done to the man whom the king delights to honor.
Splendid, said the king. Make haste, take the apparel and the horse, as you have said, and do so to the Jew Mordecai. Leave nothing out.
So Haman took the apparel and the horse, and reluctantly conducted Mordecai on horseback through the square of the city, shouting before him, Thus shall it be done to the man the king delights to honor. I can't believe I'm doing this. Thus shall it be done to the man the king delights to honor. Later, after leaving Mordecai at the king's gate, Haman hurried to his house with his head covered. When Haman told his wife and friends everything that had happened, they were worried.
Oh, no! If Mordecai is of Jewish origin, you may not prevail against him.
Oh, something awful is going to happen. While they were in much distress, the king's eunuchs arrived and hurried Haman away to the queen's banquet. So the king and Haman came to dine, and after dinner the king asked again,
What is your petition? What is your request? It shall be granted you even to half the kingdom.
Then said Queen Esther,
If I have found favor in your sight, O king, and if it please the king, let my life be given me, and my people at my request. For I and my people are to be destroyed, slain, wiped out of existence. If we had been but sold as slaves, I would have held my tongue. But our affliction is nothing compared to the damage this will do to the king.
Then King Xerxes roared, Who is he, and where is he who dares to do such a thing?
And the queen replied,
An enemy, this vile Haman.
The king jumped from the table in anger and went into the garden. Haman threw himself at Queen Esther's feet, for he saw he was in grave danger. As the king returned, he saw Haman falling on the couch where Queen Esther was. What, said the king, will you assault the queen in my presence, in my own palace?
As the king spoke these words, the servants covered Haman's face, and one of the servants spoke. Behold, Haman has built a gallows 75 feet high to hang Mordecai, whose warning saved the king's life. And the king said, Then hang Haman. And so it was. Now, Mordecai finally came before the king and Esther and admitted that he was her adopted father. So the king set Mordecai over Haman's house, and the king gave him his ring. A decree was written that the Jews could defend themselves and take any plunder from those who planned to harm them, and there was great joy. A feast and a holiday was planned for those days Haman had planned for destruction. Therefore, those days are called Purim, because of Pur, that is, casting of a lot to find a lucky day. Those days were to be remembered and kept throughout every generation, and this holiday should never cease from among the Jews. The command of Esther the queen confirmed these observances of Purim, and it was written into a book. And so it was. Mordecai the Jew was next to King Xerxes and became great among his people, for he sought the welfare of his people and spoke peace to his whole race. And so it was.